All right, welcome to Unwoke University. This isn't going to be the most sophisticated thing you've ever seen in your life. You can already tell it's kind of haphazardly put together. But really, I just wanted to I was getting annoyed the other day, and I just needed to go through this exercise to really understand what is going on out there. Like, I know there's a way to think through this critically that makes it all make sense when we think about identities. And in this particular Making It Make Sense series at Unwoke University, which is really nothing right now, it's just a stupid slideshow made by some dumb guy that's just doing this on a Saturday, okay? But I just had to go through this just to think clearly for myself. So what are we going to do today? This is the point. I'm just going to talk about a couple points. I think I got 10 over here that talk about how to think about trans identities and how it fits in with biological identities. I want to talk about some of the intellectual dishonesties and some of the lies, and then really what makes sense for both sides. I think there's a common theme here. Like us as humans, we want to have our cake and eat it too, and that's not possible. You can't take something without, removing it, right? Like you can't have it and eat it. So, what's the point? So today, I just really wanted to talk about how reality is a thing. It's the foundation. Unwokeness is needed right now. It's like a civilizational hard reset. I think that paradoxically, trans identity proves biological reality at the end of the day. I think that's the main thing. Um, we don't need erasure. We need new categories. I think we have a software and a hardware conflict. Gender expression does not equal biological sex. Decoupling while demanding the same treatment is a paradox. And cosmetic modification to fit in proves the binary still rules. So it's really paradoxical, guys. I know I'm rambling here a little bit, but there's a couple more things here, okay? If society requires that cosmetic modification is a necessity to belong, I think there's a sickness there. I mean, but I get it. I think there's a lot of truth and compassion here when talking about this. I'm not trying to alienate trans people. I'm not trying to say that there's something wrong with them. I just don't think that. I think there's a false equivalency here. Okay, so let's just jump into it. All right. First thing I wanted to talk about is if we think of society as an operating system, we are hardware, right, as bodies, and we have expressions that are software, right? So biology, especially when it comes to sports is really a measure. I mean, yeah, there's a mental aspect of it, but it manifests itself as a biological performance piece. But as we think about sports, it's a physical performance environment. So it's less a requirement, and it's less important to think about how you're feeling that day to what your physicality is. And I think if somebody, we look back, we think of how we treated, let's say we take a woman, right? A female, we call them a woman. We had those labels, those categorical systems coupled, right? So when we said woman, we meant female. When we said female, we meant woman, right? So given that, we can extrapolate that one meant the other and the other meant the other, right? So now when we start in the last couple of decades here, especially in the last decade or 15 years, we start decoupling it, then they're totally two different things. So what I'm saying here is by being trans, you're admitting that you are trans. That means you've been modified cosmetically or on some level hormonally that then manifests itself physically, but you're still not the same. To admit that you're trans, you're admitting that you're not the same as cis. So it's like if you have a particle in space, you have an antiparticle. So by being trans, you're actually proving that you're reinforcing the paradox that there is a biological reality. But to say that you're trans and you're the same as somebody that isn't trans is a false equivalent. That's impersonation. You can't declare you are an identity. You are the identity by proof, right? So I can't identify as you, for example. I can't identify as anything that I want. There are there are qualification characteristics that are provable and evidentiary. So you can be trans, which means that you were one biological thing, right? And you still are the same biological thing, but cosmetically or hormonally modified in a range of physiological changes that are not the same as somebody that has never been transitioned, modified, or cosmetically changed. They are just their biological state, what they were and what they are now, that hasn't changed. Like, they haven't been modified. So if you're taking a female, right, and putting her into a male sport, but you're saying she transitioned, what you're saying is she cosmetically modified herself. Even if she had hormone changes and things like that, it's still not the same equivalence as a male that has, or a female that has never had any of those modifications, or is more complete in their female nature. Now, there's all this thought about like non-binary, binary. All of that stuff really reinforces the diametric poles. By saying you're non-binary, you're still on the spectrum between two endpoints that prove that there's a left and a right in that spectrum. So all this stuff is really paradoxical. I kind of lost my train of thought there, kind of like going into this, but whatever. But the point here is, by being trans, you're proving into existence the other side of that, which is those that are not trans, aka cisgender. Sporting physiological competition is based on that substrate, that layer. Woman and man were just labels attached to those physiological, biological realities. So it's not the same. Okay, what's up here? What's next? So I think there's a better way to categorize all this. So by enabling people to think that the delusion of the fact that if they identify as someone that hasn't been trans and they are trans, that's a massive delusion. So that's really the paradox that I'm trying to highlight today. I think we need new categories, if anything, versus like erasing or having false equivalency to current categories, biological, in our biological order of male and female, right? So, I mean, just as you can identify as trans, somebody biologically not trans can identify as like super cis or like super female and make a new category for themselves that goes to the left or right of being trans. So if you have a sports league where like males are playing with females, females could just say, well, I'm a female plus, which is then different. So you can move those goalposts. I can speak here. So, I mean, like, the whole exercise is untenable, dude. Like, the whole thing is just a waste of time in this life cycle. That's another stupid diagram I got to put here. There's a life cycle here that's just going to prove that this transitionary phase in our thinking is just, it's a stepping stone to some more clarity. And that's what I'm really trying to think about here. It's like, it's a new category. It's not the same as a current category. Okay. So that's the decoupling I'm trying to make a point here on, and these are some dumb ChatGPT images, so apologies for this. But basically, we can't run a society based on software expression, especially when it comes to arenas of hardware reality. So if we look at cosmetic identity and how that we want our physical to match that cosmetically, that's not the same as someone that's biologically different, like biologically female and male. And if you're thinking like hermaphrodites or freaking, mixed chromosomal combinations, it's still diametric. It's still in the same bipolar system of, one side you have. So yeah, what was I saying? I was saying like, okay, so if you have a cosmetic reality, then you have a biological reality. One doesn't transfer into the other or lay claim to the other, or impose or is entitled to claim of the other space. I don't even know if I'm making sense, dude. But anyway, so again, it's about category expansion. So if you're thinking transgender, it's not the same as cisgender. So a transgender person can't just like expect society to say, yeah, okay, you're the exact same as a female or male that's not transgendered. And I mean, you are from your original sex. But to say you're transgender to a new sex, that's impossible. It's not. Just by your existence, it proves that that's not a reality. That's your if you want to decouple and think about expression, Sports doesn't care about your expression, it cares about your physical performance. And that's tied to your biological sex. So just so you transition to something expressionally or cosmetically, semi, physically, it's not the same as someone that hasn't had to do that. It's just it's completely a different category. Okay. Also, I think like a society that requires you to modify yourself to fit in is there's some problems there too. And I get it. There's like, the gender imprints over time, generationally, that's a real part of your identity. But that doesn't mean you have to be like that still doesn't that's like it means that there's two new quadrants in this whole graph here. You have females, you have males, and you have cis and cis on both sides, right? Transgender just by saying you're transgender proves that you have two additional categories. So they don't cross over into the original categories, and that's where I think we have the conflict. I think that's where we're doing you an injustice. I think we're actually handicapping trans people from being really their own thing by saying that you're trans, but you're also not trans. You see what I'm saying? Like trans people ultimately, I think, don't want to see themselves as trans. They just want to be trans, but then everyone want to forget about it. That's not possible because you are actually transitioned. You're modified, dude. So to be compassionate here and tell the truth, it's like you're your own category, and that means that there's a different set of rules. That means that you're not crossing over to biological spaces as a non-trans person. Okay? So one proves the other. By being trans, you're proving that there is a biological reality. Okay, that's a stupid point that I'm trying to make, and I don't know. This is probably way more boring than I thought it was going to be. But okay, treating expression as sex is a falsehood. All right, if you express yourself as a woman, you're not like a biological woman. It hijacks the good intention behind respecting others' feelings, right? So, but it destroys the biological integrity of what sex actually means. Expression can be fluid, but sex is fixed. And sports and things like that we use as categorical systems that we were intentionally intellectually honest about using the word woman as or man as like coupled to the sex definition of female or male. And if we're decoupling that, then it doesn't matter. We're just going to transition the focus to the sex substrate. You see what I'm saying? I've had way too many energy drinks today, dude. So conflating those two substrates, like on one layer you have expression, the other layer you have sex, and sports and other physical competition is based on sex. Conflating the two is intellectually dishonest, dude. You're like weaponizing this, and it's like weaponizing empathy. And I don't think it's doing a justice to trans people. Decoupling from biology while demanding access to biological categories is wrong. If you decouple it, then you're decoupling it. You're committing a category error in that case. You can't like simultaneously sever the biological piece and then claim entitlement to its privileges. It's like the philosophical parasitism, right? So it's just a point that I wanted to make. Like, if you're going to have a new category, you're going to have a new category, right? We talked about like fitting into society. I just going through some of my notes here. I think it's like a software hardware category conflict. I know I sound like an asshole right now, but I'm really trying to just be compassionate here. But I don't think we've really categorized this correctly in the past. So anyway, I'm going to shut up there. But really, like, if you're going to be trans, you're trans, dude. You're not cis. If you're going to be like, if you're trying to compete in cis spaces, then you can't be trans. That's just what it is. And if you are, then there's got to be new categories, and that means that other people can create new categories. And this is just the beginning of a new life cycle, right? This is a new cycle. Like people are going to be transhumanists, people are going to be trans objects. There's like all these. There's going to be a whole new spectrum. But that's all going to just reinforce that the biological foundational truth. It's just going to. So what's going to happen with all of this subjectivity and category expansion is just going to reinforce the need and the criticality of biological foundational fundamental truth.